My wife said, "I've decided to be a surrogate for my male coworker. They can't have children." I smiled. Then I froze our accounts, removed her from my insurance. Finally, 2 hours later, she saw what she'd saw. You know that moment when your entire life implodes, but you're holding a breadstick, so you just keep chewing because what else are you supposed to do? Yeah, that was me last Tuesday at Olive Garden, sitting across from my wife Haley, watching her drop a conversational nuke while dipping her third breadstick in a marinara sauce, like she was discussing the weather or asking me to pick up milk on the way home. Let me set the scene for you. We're talking about the Olive Garden on 5th Street, the one with the slightly broken neon sign that flickers like it's having a seizure every time someone orders the tour of Italy. It's not fancy, but it's our spot. Or it was our spot. Past tense. We'd been coming here since we started dating 5 years ago, back when Haley still laughed at my jokes and didn't treat our marriage like a non-profit organization accepting donations for random causes. The waiter, this kid named Tyler who couldn't have been more than 19 and looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else, had just dropped off our second basket of breadsticks. I was mid-bite, thinking about whether I wanted the chicken parmigiana or the shrimp scampi, when Haley cleared her throat in that way that immediately made my stomach drop. You know the throat clear I'm talking about, the one that precedes life-altering announcements. The same one she used before telling me her mother was moving in for just a few weeks that turned into 4 months, or when she informed me she'd volunteered us to host her book club's wine night without asking. "So, I need to tell you something," she said, and my internal alarm system started blaring like a fire drill in a paper factory. I put down my breadstick. "Okay," I said slowly, already mentally preparing for whatever fresh hell was about to rain down on my Tuesday evening. Maybe she'd bought another expensive purse. Maybe she'd adopted a cat without telling me. Maybe she'd signed us up for one of those timeshare presentations where they hold you hostage for 4 hours while someone named Derek with 2 white teeth tries to convince you that owning a week in Orlando is a sound investment. She took a sip of her Moscato, because of course she drinks Moscato, the official wine of women who also enjoy pumpkin spice lattes and live, laugh, love wall decorations, and said, "Brandon at work is having trouble having a baby with his wife Claire." I nodded, wondering where this was going. Brandon, right. The guy from her office who I'd met exactly twice at company barbecues, both times finding him aggressively boring while he talked about his CrossFit routine and his macros like anyone within earshot gave a single damn. Brandon wore those slim-fit button-downs that are always one deep breath away from sending buttons flying across the room like shrapnel. Brandon used hair gel. A lot of it. Brandon was the human equivalent of a LinkedIn motivational post. "That's unfortunate," I said, because what else do you say? I didn't know Brandon well enough to care about his reproductive challenges, but I'm not a monster, so I could muster up some basic human sympathy. "It is," Haley agreed, nodding solemnly like we were discussing a natural disaster. "They've been trying for 3 years. Claire has some medical condition, I forget the name, something with a lot of syllables, and they can't conceive naturally. Surrogacy is their only option." "That's rough," I said, reaching for another breadstick, thinking this conversation was wrapping up and we could get back to the important business of carb loading and discussing whether we needed to refinance the mortgage. Then she hit me with it. So I told Brandon I'd carry the baby for them. I stopped chewing. Actually stopped mid-chew, a piece of breadstick lodged between my molars like a temporary filling. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to laugh and say "just kidding" or "gotcha," or literally anything that would indicate this was some bizarre joke I wasn't getting. She stared back, completely serious, with that expression she gets when she thinks she's doing something noble. Chin slightly raised, eyes bright with misguided righteousness, like a beauty pageant contestant who just declared her platform is world peace. "You what?" I finally managed, swallowing the breadstick chunk, which went down my throat like a lump of concrete. "I'm going to be their surrogate," she repeated, slower this time, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Brandon and Claire's surrogate. I'll carry their baby. It's the right thing to do." Tyler, the waiter, chose that exact moment to appear at our table, clearly reading the room about, as well as a golden retriever reads quantum physics. "How are those breadsticks treating you folks? Can I get you started with some appetizers? The stuffed mushrooms are really popular tonight." "We're good," I said through clenched teeth, not taking my eyes off Haley. "Great. I'll give you a few more minutes with the menu," Tyler chirped, backing away slowly like he'd just stumbled onto a crime scene. I leaned forward. Haley, did you just say you're going to carry Brandon's baby? Brandon and Claire's baby, she corrected, like that distinction mattered. Technically, it would be their embryo. They'd do IVF, and I'd just be the carrier. Like an Uber, but for babies. An Uber. For babies. My wife just compared her uterus to a ride-sharing service. Did you think, I said carefully, that maybe this was something we should discuss together before you volunteered your body for 9 months? She waved her hand dismissively, like I was being dramatic. I knew you'd understand. You're always so supportive. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Women do this all the time. It's actually really beautiful when you think about it, giving the gift of life to people who can't have children themselves. The gift of life. She'd turned my wife into a Hallmark card written by someone on heavy medication. How much are they paying you? I asked, because surely, there was some financial compensation for this insanity. She looked almost offended. Nothing. I'm doing this out of kindness. They're friends. Brandon's been so stressed about it, and I just want to help. Money would make it weird. But volunteering to carry your male coworker's baby without telling your husband wasn't weird. That was apparently totally normal and fine. I sat back in the booth, the vinyl squeaking under me. Around us, families were eating pasta, couples were sharing tiramisu. A kid 3 tables over was having a meltdown about wanting more Parmesan cheese. Normal Olive Garden activities. Meanwhile, I was experiencing what I can only describe as an out-of-body experience, watching my marriage spontaneously combust while unlimited breadsticks mocked me from their basket. Say something, Haley prompted, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I looked at her hand on mine, at her wedding ring that I'd saved up for 3 months to buy, at her perfectly manicured nails painted some shade that was probably called delusional rose or inappropriate coral. That's beautiful, I heard myself say, my voice coming from somewhere far away. Really beautiful, Haley. Good for you. She beamed. Actually beamed, like she'd just told me she'd won the lottery instead of announcing she was going to spend the better part of a year growing another man's child in her body without compensation or apparently any consideration for her actual husband. I knew you'd get it, she said, squeezing my hand. You always get it. That's why I love you. Tyler reappeared. Ready to order? I'll have the chicken parmigiana, Haley said cheerfully. Eating for 2 soon. I wanted to die. Right there, in that booth, surrounded by fake Italian ambience and the smell of garlic bread, I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole. And for you, sir? Just the check, I said. Because somewhere between the breadsticks and the bombshell, I'd lost my appetite completely. But I'd gained something else, clarity. Crystal clear, high definition, IMAX quality clarity about exactly what I needed to do next. I smiled at Haley, nodded through the rest of dinner, and internally started drafting divorce papers in my head, organized by priority, with bullet points and everything. Turns out, all those years of Haley making me watch legal dramas were about to pay off. I don't remember the drive from Olive Garden to my brother Mason's house. I mean, I physically drove there. The car didn't pilot itself, and I didn't get pulled over, so I must have followed traffic laws. But my brain was somewhere else entirely. Probably filing itself under catastrophic system failure and preparing to reboot in safe mode. When I pulled into Mason's driveway in the suburbs, I sat in my car for a solid 3 minutes, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left in my rapidly dissolving reality, staring at his porch light like it held answers to questions I didn't even know how to ask yet. Mason lives in one of those cookie-cutter neighborhoods where every house looks basically the same except for minor variations in shutters and mailbox styles. His place is the one with the slightly overgrown lawn because he believes mowing grass is suburban oppression, and the inflatable Halloween decoration that he never takes down because it's funny. There's currently a 6-foot Frankenstein deflated on his front yard like a sad, vinyl corpse. Very on-brand for Mason. I texted him. Outside. Need to talk. Bring beer. 3 dots appeared immediately, then. This better be good. I was watching a documentary about serial killers. Better than that. I typed back. 30 seconds later, his front door opened and Mason appeared in sweatpants and a t-shirt that said, "I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right." A Christmas gift from his second ex-wife, worn with what I can only describe as spiteful pride. He was holding 2 beers, already opened, because Mason's superpower is somehow always knowing when someone needs alcohol immediately. Get in here, he said, jerking his head toward the door. You look like you just watched someone kick a puppy. I followed him inside, past the living room that looked like a Best Buy exploded in it. Mason's coping mechanism after his second divorce was apparently buying every electronic gadget known to mankind, and into his kitchen, which was surprisingly clean for a guy who claimed cooking was just expensive chemistry with disappointing results. He slid one of the beers across the kitchen island to me. Talk. I took a long drink first, because how do you even start this conversation? Haley's pregnant. Mason's eyebrows shot up so fast they nearly achieved liftoff. Oh shit, man. Congratulations. Wait. He paused, studying my face, which I'm sure looked like I'd been slapped repeatedly with a frozen fish. Why do you look like you're about to bury a body? Is it not yours? Did she cheat? Worse, I said. How is there something worse than? She's going to be a surrogate for her coworker Brandon and his wife Claire. For free. She told me at Olive Garden right after the breadsticks arrived. Just announced it like she was telling me she'd joined a book club. There was a moment of absolute silence. Mason's face went through approximately 17 different expressions in the span of 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, the dawning of understanding, then finally landing on what I can only describe as unholy amusement. Then he laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a sympathetic laugh. No, this was a full body, doubled over, gasping for air, tears streaming down his face laugh that went on for so long I started to worry about his oxygen intake. She what? He finally wheezed out, gripping the counter for support. For free. Completely free. I confirmed, taking another drink. Said money would make it weird. Apparently, carrying another man's baby without telling your husband first isn't weird, but accepting payment for it crosses some invisible line of weirdness I'm not sophisticated enough to understand. Mason wiped his eyes, still occasionally erupting into smaller fits of laughter like aftershocks following an earthquake. Man, you married Captain Charity. Like, I knew Haley was into her volunteer stuff and her whole, making a difference Instagram aesthetic, but this is Olympic-level altruism. This is Mother Teresa meets the Virgin Mary meets someone who desperately needs therapy. Tell me about it, I muttered. Wait. Mason held up his hand, trying to compose himself. Back up. Tell me everything. Word for word. I need details. What exactly did she say? How did she say it? Did she at least have the decency to look apologetic? So I walked him through it. The whole scene. The breadsticks, the casual tone, the eating for too soon comment to the waiter, all of it. With every detail, Mason's grin got wider, like he was watching the world's most entertaining train wreck in slow motion. And you just said that's beautiful? He asked when I finished. What was I supposed to do? Cause a scene at Olive Garden? They already have enough problems with that flickering sign. Mason shook his head, opening his fridge and pulling out 2 more beers even though we hadn't finished the first ones. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. First, you're going to stay calm. Don't tip your hand. Be the supportive husband she thinks you are. I don't want to be supportive of this insanity. You're not actually being supportive, you idiot. You're being strategic. You smile, you nod, you say all the right things while you quietly prepare your exit strategy. Trust me, I've done this twice. Well, not the surrogate thing. That's a new level of crazy even for my track record. But the my marriage is over and I need to protect myself thing? Yeah, I'm basically a PhD in that. He had a point. Mason's first wife, Brittany, had tried to take him for everything including his childhood Pokemon card collection. His second wife, Amanda, had attempted to claim his dog in the divorce. Mason had learned, through painful and expensive experience, how to navigate marital disasters. What's step 1? I asked. Step 1 is you stop being emotional and start being practical. How are your finances structured? Joint accounts? Any big assets in her name? Do you have anything inherited that she might try to claim? I thought about it. My grandfather left me about 80 grand 2 years ago. It's in a separate account, but nothing. Mason interrupted. That's separate property in most states, especially if you kept it separate. What else? We have a joint checking and savings. The house is in both our names. My 401k, her IRA, the usual stuff. Mason pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. Okay, here's what's about to happen. You're going to talk to my buddy Jessie. She's a paralegal, works at a family law firm, knows her shit. She'll tell you exactly how to freeze accounts, how to protect your assets, and most importantly, how to file first. File first. Divorce, man. Keep up. The person who files first has the advantage. They control the narrative. They're proactive, not reactive. Trust me, you want to be the one setting the terms, not scrambling to respond to her lawyer's demands 6 months from now when she's got a baby bump and a sob story about how you abandoned her in her time of need. The word divorce hung in the air like a smoke alarm nobody wanted to acknowledge. Saying it out loud made it real. Made it something I was actually considering instead of just a dark thought I'd been entertaining between breadsticks and bombshells. You think I should divorce her? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Mason looked at me like I'd just asked if water was wet. Brother, she volunteered to carry another dude's baby without asking you. She made a unilateral decision about her body that directly affects your marriage, your future, your entire life. She treated you like a roommate whose opinion doesn't matter. What part of that sounds like a partnership worth saving? He wasn't wrong. The more I sat with it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the surrogacy. This was about a pattern. Haley had been making decisions without me for years, smaller ones, sure, but still. The expensive renovations she'd insisted on. The puppy she'd brought home that I was allergic to, which we'd had to rehome after 2 miserable weeks of me eating Benadryl like candy. The time she'd loaned her sister $5,000 from our savings without mentioning it until I saw the bank statement. Call Jessie, I said. Mason grinned and started typing out a text. Now you're thinking clearly. She'll walk you through everything. In the meantime, you go home, you act normal, and you start documenting everything. Every conversation, every text, every time Haley does something that proves she's more committed to Brandon's family planning than to her actual marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from Haley. Where are you? You left kind of quickly. I showed Mason, who snorted. Tell her you needed to clear your head. Tell her you're processing. Tell her whatever she wants to hear. I typed back, at Mason's. Just needed to talk through everything. Big news. Home soon. She sent back a heart emoji. A heart emoji. Like she hadn't just detonated our marriage over unlimited breadsticks. She's delusional, I said. She's about to be single, Mason corrected. Jessie just texted back. She can meet you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., at a coffee shop downtown. The Grind, you know it. I nodded. The Grind was this hipster place where the coffee cost $7 and came with a side of judgment from baristas with handlebar mustaches, but it was always crowded enough that you could have a private conversation without being overheard. Perfect. Tomorrow morning, you start protecting yourself. Tonight, you go home, you sleep on the couch if you have to, and you start thinking about what your life looks like on the other side of this. I finished my beer, feeling something shift inside me. Not quite resolved, but close. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was the first spark of self-preservation finally kicking in after being dormant for too long. Thanks, man, I said. Mason clinked his beer bottle against mine. That's what brothers are for. Well, that and being cautionary tales about marriage. Consider me both your support system and your warning label. I drove home that night with a plan forming, with Mason's words echoing in my head, and with the first genuine sense of control I'd felt since Haley had opened her mouth at Olive Garden. Tomorrow I'd meet Jessie. Tomorrow I'd start protecting myself. Tonight, I'd go home and sleep next to a woman who thought volunteering her uterus was peak compassion. But I'd sleep knowing I wasn't going to be a passive participant in my own life anymore. The Grind looked exactly like every other gentrified coffee shop in America. Exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling like industrial fireflies, and a chalkboard menu with more adjectives than actual drink names. I stood in line behind a woman ordering something called a turmeric oat milk cordido with activated charcoal, and wondered if I'd accidentally wandered onto the set of a satirical sketch about millennial culture. The barista, sporting a mustache that probably had its own Instagram account, nodded seriously while writing her order on a cup with the concentration of a surgeon preparing for a complex procedure. I ordered a large black coffee. Just coffee, no modifications, no superfood additions, no milk alternatives derived from nuts I'd never heard of, and the barista looked at me like I'd just asked for a rotary phone. Just black coffee? He asked, seemingly disappointed that I wasn't giving him an opportunity to demonstrate his beverage engineering degree. Revolutionary, I know. I said, handing him a 10. I found Jesse at a corner table, laptop open, surrounded by what appeared to be several legal documents and a coffee that was definitely not plain black. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and glasses that gave her the look of someone who'd spent too many late nights reading case law and not enough time pretending to care about self-care. She wore a blazer over a t-shirt, the universal uniform of professionals who straddled the line between corporate and I refused to completely sell out. "You must be Mason's brother," she said, standing to shake my hand. Her grip was firm, businesslike. "Jesse Chun, have a seat." Mason filled me in on the basics, but I want to hear it directly from you. I sat down, suddenly feeling like I was about to confess to a crime I hadn't committed yet. "I'm not sure where to start." "Start with why you're here," she said, pulling out a legal pad that already had notes on it. "Mason said something about your wife volunteering to be a surrogate without consulting you." So I told her the whole story again. It was becoming a well-rehearsed monologue at this point. The Olive Garden setting, the breadstick timing, the casual delivery, the complete lack of consideration for my opinion on the matter. Jessie listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting down notes, her expression remaining professionally neutral except for a brief eyebrow raise when I got to the "for free" part. When I finished, she sat back and tapped her pen against her legal pad. "Okay, so let me make sure I understand this correctly. Your wife, without any prior discussion or your consent, agreed to carry her male coworker's baby for 9 months, undergo all the medical procedures and physical changes that entails, and do it all for zero compensation because she thinks money would make it weird. That's the situation, yes. And you found out about this decision, which directly impacts your marriage, your finances, your living situation, and your entire future, over Italian food at a chain restaurant. The breadsticks were unlimited, if that helps paint the picture." Jessie cracked a smile for the first time. "Your wife has an interesting approach to major life decisions. I'm going to be straight with you. This is one of the more bizarre consultations I've had, and I once had a guy whose wife tried to list their timeshare as a marital asset worth 6 figures when they'd paid $12,000 for it. So what are my options?" She pulled her laptop closer, typing something quickly. "Well, first question, do you want to stay married to someone who makes unilateral decisions like this?" I'd been asking myself that question since I left Olive Garden approximately 18 hours ago. The answer had become increasingly clear with each passing hour, each moment of reflection. Each time I'd replayed the conversation in my head looking for any angle where Haley's actions made sense. "No," I said. "I don't think I do." "Good. Clarity is important. Second question, how vindictive do you want to be?" I blinked. Is that a normal question lawyers ask? Paralegals can ask whatever we want. We're not bound by the same ethical constraints. I'm basically the ID to a lawyer's superego. She grinned, and I suddenly understood why Mason liked her. But seriously, there's a spectrum here. On one end, you file for divorce, split assets 50-50, everyone walks away clean. On the other end, you make this as difficult as possible because you're angry and you want her to understand there are consequences for treating her husband like an NPC in her personal hero's journey. What's the middle ground? Middle ground is you protect yourself aggressively but fairly. You freeze joint accounts so she can't drain them before the divorce is finalized. You remove her from your health insurance because why should you pay for her prenatal care when she's carrying someone else's baby? You file first, which gives you the strategic advantage. You document everything, and I mean everything. So if she tries to paint you as the bad guy, you have receipts. Basically, you play smart, not mean. That sounded reasonable. I wasn't trying to destroy Haley. I wasn't a monster, but I also wasn't going to roll over and let her treat our marriage like a charity she could donate to without board approval. Let's go with the middle ground. Jessie nodded approvingly. Smart. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to connect you with Ava Morrison. She's a divorce attorney at our firm, and she's exactly who you want in your corner for this. She's sharp, she's aggressive when she needs to be, and she doesn't let people push her clients around. Think of her as a legal shark with excellent courtroom fashion sense. Sounds terrifying. She is, in the best possible way. Jessie made a note. Second, we're going to freeze your joint accounts today. I'll walk you through exactly how to do that. You'll need to go to your bank, explain that you're initiating divorce proceedings, and request that the accounts be frozen pending resolution. They'll require both parties to sign off on any withdrawals over a certain amount. Won't Haley notice immediately? Oh, absolutely. Her card will get declined the next time she tries to buy her overpriced latte or whatever. That's when the fun begins. Jessie's smile was the kind that made me glad she was on my side. She'll call you, probably angry, definitely confused. You stay calm. You tell her you're protecting marital assets during a difficult time. You don't engage with her emotions. You become Switzerland, neutral, mountainous, and full of hidden bank accounts. I laughed despite myself. What else? Third, you remove her from your health insurance. You work for, she glanced at her notes, Tech Core Solutions, right? Your HR department needs to know you're filing for a qualifying life event, divorce, and they need to remove your spouse from your plan. Do this today if possible, tomorrow at the latest. The last thing you want is to be paying for ultrasounds and prenatal vitamins for a baby that isn't yours. The logistics were piling up, but they made sense. Brutal sense, maybe, but sense nonetheless. This all feels very calculated. It is calculated. That's the point. Divorce is a legal proceeding, not a feelings workshop. You can process your emotions in therapy, and I do recommend therapy. By the way, Mason can give you some referrals, but when it comes to protecting yourself legally and financially, you need to think with your head, not your heart. She slid a business card across the table. This is Ava's direct number. Call her today. Tell her Jessie sent you and that it's the surrogacy case. She'll know exactly what to do. I picked up the card. Ava Morrison, attorney at law. The card stock was heavy, expensive, the kind that said, I win cases and I'm not cheap about it. What should I expect when I call her? She'll probably want to meet with you this afternoon if she can squeeze you in. She'll ask you a lot of questions about your marriage, your assets, what you want out of the divorce. Be honest with her. Don't try to make yourself look better than you are. Don't exaggerate Haley's faults. Just tell the truth. Ava can work with the truth. What she can't work with is clients who lie or hide things that come out later. I nodded, pocketing the card. Anything else? Yeah. Stop sleeping in the same bed as your wife. Move to the couch, the guest room, wherever. Create physical distance. It'll make things easier emotionally. And if this somehow goes to trial, which it probably won't, but you never know, you can establish that the marriage was effectively over before the divorce was even filed. The coffee in my cup had gone lukewarm while we talked, but I took a sip anyway, needing something to do with my hands. This is really happening, isn't it? Jessie's expression softened slightly, the professional mask slipping just enough to reveal actual human sympathy underneath. Yeah, it is. And I know it probably feels overwhelming right now, like you're making irreversible decisions at lightning speed. But here's the thing. Your wife already made the irreversible decision. She just didn't bother to tell you it was irreversible. You're not ending your marriage. You're acknowledging that she already ended it when she decided her co-worker's reproductive needs were more important than her husband's feelings. She was right. Haley had pressed the self-destruct button on our marriage the moment she'd opened her mouth at Olive Garden. I was just finally reading the manual on how to evacuate safely. Thank you, I said. Seriously, I know this is your job, but thank you for not making me feel crazy for being upset about this. You're not crazy. You're married to someone with a broken understanding of boundaries and an overinflated sense of her own altruism. There's a difference. She closed her laptop and started gathering her papers. Call Ava today. Freeze the accounts today. HR today. Think of today as day one of taking your life back. We shook hands again, and I walked out of the grind with a business card, a plan, and something I hadn't felt in 24 hours, a sense of control. The barista with the elaborate mustache called out someone's activated charcoal situation as I left, and I couldn't help but think that my life had become its own kind of activated charcoal situation. Messy, unnecessarily complicated, and probably bad for my health. But at least now I had professionals helping me clean it up. I sat in my car in the parking lot and dialed Ava Morrison's number before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the second ring. Ava Morrison. Hi, my name is... Jessie Chin referred me. She said to tell you I'm the surrogacy case. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. Oh, you're breadstick guy? Jessie texted me this morning. I have an opening at 2 o'clock today. Don't be late. She hung up before I could respond. I checked my watch. It was 10:30. I had 3.5 hours to freeze my bank accounts, call HR, and mentally prepare to meet a woman Jesse had described as a legal shark. Day one of taking my life back had officially begun. I took the long way home, driving through neighborhoods I didn't need to drive through, taking turns that added 15 unnecessary minutes to my commute because I knew what was waiting for me. Haley had sent 4 more increasingly frantic texts since the first one about her card not working, each one escalating in urgency and confusion like a text-based panic attack playing out in real time. Seriously, what's going on with the bank? I tried to get gas and it declined. This is embarrassing. Are you ignoring me? Did something happen to our account? We need to talk. Now. That last one had come through about 5 minutes ago, and I could practically hear her voice through the screen. That specific tone she used when she was gearing up for a fight, the one that usually preceded her listing all the ways I'd failed to meet her expectations. Except this time, I wasn't walking into the arena unarmed. This time, I had Ava Morrison in my corner, an illegal strategy that didn't involve me apologizing for having feelings about my wife's reproductive philanthropy. I pulled into our driveway at 6:15, noting that Haley's Prius was already there, parked at a slightly aggressive angle that suggested she'd arrived home in a hurry. The living room lights were on, and through the window I could see her pacing, back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. Probably calling the bank for the 3rd time, getting the same answer she'd gotten the first 2 times. The account holder had frozen the account pending legal proceedings, and no, they couldn't override it, and no, they couldn't tell her anything more than that. I sat in my car for a moment, engine off, mentally preparing myself for what was about to happen. This was it. The moment where everything became real, where I stopped being a supportive husband considering his options and became someone actively dismantling his marriage with the cold efficiency of a demolition crew with proper permits. The front door flew open before I even reached the porch. Haley stood there in her work clothes, slacks and a blouse that probably cost more than it should have, her face flushed with anger or exertion or both. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, looked like she'd been running her hands through it repeatedly, which was her tell when she was stressed. I'd seen that hair exactly twice before. Once when her sister had eloped without telling anyone, and once when she'd accidentally sent a complaint email about her boss to her actual boss instead of her work friend. What did you do? Each word came out like a separate sentence, punctuated by the kind of fury that would have intimidated me 48 hours ago, but now just felt like white noise. Hey, Haley, I said, brushing past her into the house. How was your day? Don't you dare act casual right now. She slammed the door hard enough that our wedding photo on the entryway table rattled. Appropriate symbolism. My card was declined at the gas station. At the gas station. Do you know how humiliating that is? I had to ask the guy behind me in line to spot me $20. I set my keys in the bowl on the side table, the same bowl we'd received as a wedding gift from my Aunt Carol, who'd probably seen this coming before we did. That does sound inconvenient. Inconvenient. I called the bank, and they said you froze our accounts. They said you told them you were filing for divorce. Her voice had reached that pitch that dogs in neighboring counties could probably hear. What the hell is going on? I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral, channeling every instruction Ava had given me about staying calm and not engaging emotionally. Gray rock. Be a gray rock. I'm protecting our marital assets during a difficult time in our relationship. Difficult time? She let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. What difficult time? Everything was fine until you apparently decided to have a breakdown. Everything was fine, I repeated slowly. You volunteered to carry another man's baby without consulting me, but everything was fine. Brandon's baby. Brandon and Claire's baby. Why do you keep making it sound like I'm having an affair? Because you made a decision about your body, our marriage, and our future without me. You treated me like a bystander in my own life. So now I'm making decisions without you. See how that feels? Her face went through several color changes, red to white to red again, like a malfunctioning traffic light. This is insane. You're being insane. It's surrogacy. It's helping people. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing you decided to do without asking your husband if he was okay with being married to a pregnant woman carrying someone else's baby for 9 months. I moved past her into the living room, needing distance, needing space, needing to not be standing in the entryway having this conversation where the neighbors could hear through the thin walls of our cookie-cutter subdivision home. She followed me, naturally, because Haley had never met a conflict she didn't want to pursue to its bitter end. I thought you'd understand. You've always been supportive of my volunteer work, my causes. Your causes are usually bake sales and 5K runs, Haley. Not gestating a human being. So that's it. You're just going to divorce me? Over this. She crossed her arms, and I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. The weapon she always deployed when logic wasn't working in her favor. 5 years of marriage, gone, because I wanted to do something good for people who are struggling? You're not listening to me, I said, and I could feel my own frustration building despite my best efforts to stay calm. This isn't about you doing something good. This is about you making a massive, life-altering decision that affects both of us without even asking my opinion. What's next? Are you going to adopt a kid without telling me? Sell our house and move to Alaska because someone at work needs a roommate? Where's the line, Haley? That's not fair. None of this is fair. You know what's not fair? Finding out your wife is going to be pregnant for 3/4 of a year with a baby that isn't yours while you're eating breadsticks. You know what's not fair? Being expected to smile and nod and be supportive while you play gestational Uber for your coworker who wears too much hair gel. She threw a coaster at me. Actually threw it, like we were in some kind of domestic dramedy, and she was the quirky wife having a justified emotional moment. I ducked, and it sailed past my head, bouncing off the wall behind me. Really? I said. We're throwing things now. You're ruining my life. I'm ruining your life? I'm not the one who volunteered my internal organs for a side quest. The doorbell rang. We both froze, staring at each other, then at the door. For a moment, I actually hoped it was someone selling religion or solar panels or pest control. Anything to interrupt this train wreck of a conversation. Haley wiped her eyes and went to answer it, probably grateful for the interruption. I heard her open the door, heard her say, "Brandon, what are you doing here?" in a voice that was trying very hard to sound normal and failing miserably. Oh, perfect. The man of the hour. The guy whose reproductive issues had somehow become my marital apocalypse. Brandon walked into our living room like he was entering a hostage negotiation, hands slightly raised in a peaceful gesture. He was wearing, and I wish I was making this up, a fitted black t-shirt that showed off his gym routine, dark jeans that were probably labeled slim fit or athletic cut, or some other euphemism for, I can't fit my quads into normal pants, and sneakers that cost more than my monthly car payment. His hair was perfectly styled with what had to be an entire container of product. Achieving that, I woke up like this, but actually spent 20 minutes in front of a mirror, look that certain guys think makes them look casual and effortless. "Hey man," he said, like we were buddies grabbing beers and not two guys connected by the world's most awkward biological arrangement. Haley called me, said there was some kind of emergency. Emergency? I interrupted. Is that what we're calling this? Look, I don't want to cause problems. Too late, Brandon. Problems are already caused. Problems are thriving. Problems are doing CrossFit and posting about it on Instagram. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. I just want to help calm things down. Haley's really upset, and Claire and I, we don't want this to affect your marriage. My marriage is already affected, Brandon. My marriage is so affected it's currently in Ava Morrison's office being filed under irreconcilable differences. Haley made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. You already went to a lawyer? I went to the best divorce attorney in the city, actually. She has great taste in office candles. Really sets the mood for ending a marriage. Brandon held up his hands again. Okay, everyone just needs to take a breath here. This is all just a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Brandon. Your situation is very clear to me. You can't have kids, which sucks, genuinely. My wife volunteered to help, which would be noble if she'd asked her husband first. She didn't. Now we're here. The only misunderstanding is your belief that showing up at my house in a deep V-neck was going to somehow make this better. It's a crew neck, he said defensively. I don't care if it's a turtleneck blessed by the Pope, Brandon. You need to leave. Don't talk to him like that. Haley jumped in, positioning herself slightly between Brandon and me like I was about to physically attack the guy. He's just trying to help. He's helping by leaving. Aren't you, Brandon? Brandon looked between Haley and me, clearly calculating whether staying was worth whatever drama was about to unfold. Apparently, his survival instincts were better than his fashion sense, because he backed toward the door. I'm going to go. Haley, call me if you need anything. Man to man, he looked at me. I really hope you guys can work this out. Man to man, I replied. I hope you find a surrogate who isn't married to someone who forgot to ask permission first. He left. The door closed. Haley burst into full tears. I can't believe you, she sobbed. I can't believe you're doing this. You're supposed to love me. I did love you, I said quietly. Past tense. Turns out love requires respect, and you respected Brandon's feelings about having a baby more than you respected mine about not wanting my wife to carry one that isn't ours. I grabbed my keys off the table. I'm staying at Mason's tonight. We can talk through lawyers from now on. Her name is Ava Morrison. If you need to have your attorney contact her. Where are you going? Haley asked, her voice breaking. Somewhere where I don't have to explain basic relationship concepts to my wife. I'll be back tomorrow for my stuff. I walked out, got in my car, and drove away, leaving Haley crying in the doorway of a house that no longer felt like home. My phone buzzed before I hit the end of the street. Mason, beer is cold. Guest room is ready. Get your ass over here. For the first time in 5 days, I smiled. Mason's guest room smelled like fabric softener and what I suspected was a failed attempt at aromatherapy, some kind of eucalyptus situation that was either supposed to be calming or clear my sinuses. I couldn't tell which. I'd crashed there around 8 o'clock the previous night, after the showdown with Haley and Brandon's unexpected cameo appearance, and I'd slept better than I had in months. Probably because I wasn't lying next to someone who'd volunteered her uterus for community service without filing the proper paperwork with her husband. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Haley, escalating from, please come home so we can talk at 11 p.m. to you're a selfish asshole at 2:30 in the morning. The progression was almost beautiful in its predictability. Grief, anger, bargaining, more anger, some crying indicated by typos and random capital letters, then back to anger with a side of personal attacks about my character, my family, and my inability to support women's choices. Mason knocked on the door around 7, already showered and dressed, carrying a cup of coffee that he handed to me like a paramedic delivering oxygen. She's having a full meltdown, I'm guessing? 17 calls, I said, showing him my phone, including one at 4 a.m. that just said answer me in all caps. Classic panic spiral. My second ex-wife did the same thing when I moved out. Expect it to get worse before it gets better. He sat on the edge of the bed, which creaked under his weight. Ava called me yesterday, by the way. Wanted to verify some details about your inheritance from Grandpa Joe. I told her everything. Separate account. Never commingled with joint funds. Clear paper trail. You're good there. That's a relief. I took a sip of the coffee, which was stronger than I usually made it, but exactly what I needed. What else should I expect today? Well, if Haley's following the standard playbook, she'll try calling your work. She'll definitely try to access any shared accounts you haven't frozen yet. Credit cards, online shopping accounts, streaming services, anything she can think of. She'll call your mom. She'll call your friends. She's going to try to build a coalition of people who think you're being unreasonable. My mom doesn't even like Haley. Doesn't matter. Desperate people make desperate calls. Mason stood up, heading toward the door. I'm working from home today, so I'll be downstairs if you need anything. Jesse texted too. Said Ava's filing the papers this morning. You should probably expect Haley to be served at work today or tomorrow. The thought of Haley being served divorce papers at her office, probably in front of Brandon and the rest of her coworkers who'd heard all about her selfless surrogacy plan, gave me a brief moment of satisfaction that I probably shouldn't have enjoyed as much as I did. But honestly, after the coaster throwing incident and Brandon's uncomfortable house call, I was running low on sympathy. My phone rang. Haley again. I declined it. It rang again immediately. Declined. Third time, I just turned off the ringer and set it face down on the nightstand like it was a bomb I was trying to ignore. By 9 a.m., I was showered, dressed, and sitting at Mason's kitchen table with my laptop, responding to work emails and pretending my personal life wasn't imploding. I worked in IT project management for TechCore Solutions, which meant most of my job could be done remotely as long as I attended the mandatory Zoom meetings where people discussed synergies and bandwidth while their cats walked across keyboards in the background. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Sophie from Haley's office. You're being a huge asshole and you should be ashamed of yourself. I showed it to Mason, who laughed hard enough to spill his coffee. Who the hell is Sophie? one of Haley's work friends. They go to lunch together and complain about their husbands. Or they used to, I guess. Now I'm the only husband worth complaining about. Reply with new phone who dis, Mason suggested. I did one better and blocked the number. If Haley's office friends wanted to get involved in our divorce, they could do it through proper legal channels, not random text harassment. Around 10:30, my actual phone rang with a call from my mother. I groaned. Mason, you were right. She's calling everyone. Don't answer it, he said, not looking up from his own laptop. Let it go to voicemail. You can deal with your mom when you're mentally prepared. But I knew my mother. If I didn't answer, she'd just keep calling, progressively more worried that I'd been kidnapped or was lying in a ditch somewhere. I picked up. Hey, Mom. What is going on? Her voice had that edge that all mothers develop, the one that can convey disappointment, concern, and judgment simultaneously. Haley called me crying, saying you froze your bank accounts and moved out, and you're divorcing her over her wanting to help a friend? That's one way to describe it, I guess. That's not an answer. Why didn't you call me? Why am I hearing about my son's divorce from his wife instead of from him? Because it literally just happened, Mom. Like, this week. I was going to call you when things settled down. Things are settled enough for you to freeze bank accounts and hire a lawyer, apparently. I heard her sigh, that specific mom sigh that could communicate volumes. Just tell me what happened. The real story, not whatever edited version Haley gave me. So I told her. The whole thing, for what felt like the 100th time. The Olive Garden announcement, the lack of consultation, the for free element that seemed to bother everyone who heard it, Brandon's existence, the decision to protect myself financially and legally. My mom was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then, she volunteered to carry a baby without asking you first? Correct. And you found out about this at a restaurant. The one with unlimited breadsticks, yes. Another pause. Well, that's insane. I almost laughed. Thank you. That's what I've been saying. I mean, I always thought Haley was a bit self-centered, but this is next level. You don't just volunteer your body for 9 months without discussing it with your spouse. That's not how marriage works. I heard her moving around, probably pacing her kitchen the way she did when she was agitated. Your father wants to know if you need money for the lawyer. I'm okay, but tell Dad thanks. Are you staying with Mason? For now, yeah. Good. He may be divorced twice, but at least he's reliable in a crisis. High praise from my mother, who'd always viewed Mason's life choices with a mixture of affection and concern. Do you need me to do anything? Just don't believe everything Haley tells people. She's probably going to paint herself as the victim here. I'm your mother. My job is to be on your side even when you're wrong, which you're not in this case. Her voice softened slightly. I'm sorry this is happening, honey. I know you loved her. I did, but apparently not enough to sign up for this particular adventure. We talked for a few more minutes, mostly her asking about logistics and me reassuring her that I was fine. I had a plan. I had a good lawyer. All the standard reassurances you give your parents when your life is falling apart, but you don't want them to worry. After I hung up, Mason looked at me from across the table. Your mom on your side? Yeah. She always thought Haley was self-centered anyway. Moms know. They always know. He closed his laptop. Okay, so here's your day. Ava's filing the papers. Haley will probably find out by this afternoon when she gets served. All hell is going to break loose. You need to stay strong, stay calm, and do not, I repeat, do not, respond to any of her messages with anything except, please contact my attorney. Say it with me. Please contact my attorney, I repeated dutifully. Good. Because she's going to try every manipulation tactic in the book. She'll cry, she'll threaten, she'll promise to change, she'll tell you you're ruining her life. She'll say you never loved her. She'll bring up every mistake you've made in 5 years of marriage. None of it matters. You know what? Because she made the unilateral decision that ended the marriage? Exactly. She threw the first grenade. You're just making sure you're not in the blast radius. Mason's phone buzzed. He looked at it and grinned. Speaking of blast radius, Jessie says Haley just called her office trying to find out which lawyer you hired. They told her they can't disclose client information. She's losing it. Good, I said, and I meant it. 4 or 5 years I'd been the accommodating husband, the one who bent to keep the peace, the one who apologized even when I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. It felt weirdly liberating to finally be the one setting boundaries, making decisions, refusing to be moved by tears or guilt trips. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Haley. I talked to Claire. She says she didn't even know I'd offered to be their surrogate. She found out from Brandon. This is all a huge misunderstanding. Please call me so we can fix this. I stared at the message. Claire didn't know? Brandon's own wife didn't know about the surrogacy arrangement until after Haley had already told me about it. I showed it to Mason. This just keeps getting better. Oh man. So Haley volunteered to carry a baby for a couple where one half of the couple didn't even know about it? That's not surrogacy. That's just chaos with extra steps. He shook his head. You need to screenshot that and send it to Ava. That's gold for your case. I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Ava's email with the subject line, New Development. Her response came back in under 2 minutes. Interesting. Very interesting. Keep all these messages. The rest of the day passed in a weird limbo state. I worked, Mason worked. We ordered Thai food for lunch and ate it while watching a documentary about people who climb mountains without ropes, which seemed less dangerous than my current situation, honestly. My phone continued its steady stream of messages from Haley, each one more desperate than the last, interspersed with a few from her friends calling me various creative insults. Around 4 p.m., I got a text from a different unknown number. This is Claire, Brandon's wife. Can we talk? I showed Mason. Should I answer this one? Definitely. The enemy of your enemy is your friend, or something like that. Plus, she might have useful information. I called the number. Claire answered on the first ring. Hi, she said, her voice uncertain. Thanks for calling back. I know this is awkward. Awkward is an understatement at this point. Yeah. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Look, I just wanted to tell you that I had no idea Haley had offered to be our surrogate. Brandon told me yesterday, after your wife called him freaking out about the divorce. I thought he was joking at first. So you never asked Haley to do this? God, no. We've been looking into surrogacy agencies, talking to coordinators, doing research. It's a whole process with contracts and medical screenings and psychological evaluations. You don't just ask your coworker's wife to carry your baby like you're asking to borrow a cup of sugar. She sighed. Brandon says Haley volunteered out of nowhere at work one day. He mentioned we were having trouble conceiving, and she just offered. Like it was nothing. That sounds like Haley. I'm really sorry this is affecting your marriage, Claire said quietly. For what it's worth, we're not going through with it. Even if you and Haley weren't getting divorced, there's no way I'd be comfortable with this arrangement. It's too messy, too informal, and honestly, I think Haley has some weird savior complex thing going on. You're not wrong about that. We talked for a few more minutes. Claire seemed nice, normal, completely reasonable, which made the whole situation even more absurd. Before we hung up, she said, if you need me to testify or make a statement for your divorce, I will. This whole thing is insane, and you shouldn't have to deal with it alone. I thanked her and hung up, feeling like I'd just made an unexpected ally in the weirdest war I'd ever fought. Mason raised his beer in a toast. To Claire, the reasonable person in this absolute dumpster fire of a situation. To Claire, I agreed, clinking my own beer against his. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Ava. Papers served at 3:47 p.m. Expect fallout. Stay strong. I turned off my phone completely and settled in for whatever came next. The fallout Ava had warned me about arrived at 6:43 a.m. the next morning in the form of a phone call from my boss, Derek, who I'd worked with for 3 years and who had never once called me before 9 a.m. I was still at Mason's, drinking coffee that tasted like it could strip paint, when my phone, which I'd reluctantly turned back on, started buzzing with Derek's name flashing across the screen. This can't be good, I muttered to Mason, who was making eggs that smelled significantly better than his coffee tasted. Answer it, he said. Rip the Band-Aid off. I picked up. Hey, Derek. Hey, man. Derek sounded uncomfortable, which was saying something because Derek was normally the kind of guy who could tell you your project was 6 months behind schedule with the casual ease of someone discussing the weather. So, I'm calling because HR called me, and HR called me because apparently there's been some situation with your wife? I closed my eyes. Of course Haley had called my office. Of course she had. What did she say? She called Rebecca in HR yesterday afternoon, crying, saying you'd abandoned her and frozen all your joint accounts and she can't afford groceries. He paused. Is everything okay? I'm filing for divorce, I said flatly. And I froze the accounts because I'm protecting marital assets during the proceedings. It's all legal and above board. My attorney advised it. Oh, okay. That's, well, that's your personal business. Derek sounded relieved, like he'd been worried I was having some kind of breakdown. Rebecca just wanted me to check in, make sure you were good to keep working. You were good to keep working, right? Absolutely. This doesn't affect my job performance at all. Great. Perfect. That's all I needed to hear. Another pause. For what it's worth, man, divorce sucks. My brother went through one last year. If you need to take any personal days or anything, just let me know. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it. After I hung up, Mason slid a plate of eggs in front of me. She called your work? She called my work and told them I abandoned her and she can't buy food. Which is insane, because A, I didn't abandon her. I left after she threw a coaster at me. And B, she has her own bank account with her own money from her own job. She's playing the victim card hard. Told you she would. Mason sat down with his own plate. What else is she going to do today, you think? As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long to find out. By 9 a.m., I had texts from 3 different people I hadn't talked to in months. College friends, former coworkers, even my cousin Brad, who I only saw at Christmas, all asking variations of, "Hey man, heard you and Haley are having problems. You doing okay?" Which was code for, "Haley called me and told me her version of events, and I'm politely checking if you're actually a monster." I responded to all of them with basically the same message, going through a divorce. It's complicated. I'm fine. Thanks for checking in. Short, professional, giving away nothing that could be used against me later. But the real entertainment started around 10:30 when Mason's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and his eyebrows shot up. "It's Jesse. Hold on." He answered on speaker. "Please tell me you have good news." "Better than good." Jesse's voice came through, barely containing laughter. "I have gossip that's so juicy it could hydrate a small desert." "Are you sitting down?" "We're both here," Mason said. "Spill." "Okay, so apparently, and I'm getting this secondhand from a friend who works in Haley's office building. Your wife's surrogacy plan has become the hottest topic of conversation in her entire company. Someone leaked that her husband, that's you, froze the accounts and filed for divorce. Now half the office thinks you're a heartless monster who abandoned his wife for wanting to help people, and the other half thinks you're a legend for standing up for yourself." I groaned. "I'm office gossip." "You're not just gossip, you're a full-blown controversy. There are apparently teams. People are taking sides. Someone started a poll in their break room Slack channel about whether you were justified or not." Jesse was definitely laughing now. "Last count, it was like 55 to 45 in your favor, which honestly isn't bad considering you're not even there to defend yourself." Mason was grinning like Christmas had come early. "What else?" "So get this. Brandon, the coworker whose baby this whole thing is about, he's apparently mortified, completely humiliated. He's been trying to keep his head down, but people keep asking him about it. And Claire, his wife, called their office yesterday and apparently tore Brandon a new one in the parking lot. Multiple witnesses. Someone said she threw his gym bag at him and told him he was an idiot for not consulting her before accepting Haley's offer. "Claire called me yesterday," I said. "She seemed nice. Very reasonable." Well, reasonable Claire is now office legend Claire, because apparently she followed up her parking lot confrontation by calling Haley directly and telling her that under no circumstances would they be using her as a surrogate, that the whole thing was inappropriate and unprofessional, and that Haley needed therapy. Jessie paused for dramatic effect. Then she called HR and filed a complaint about the situation creating a hostile work environment. "Holy shit," Mason said. "Wait, it gets better." Haley's boss called her in for a meeting this morning about maintaining professional boundaries with coworkers. Apparently, offering to carry your colleague's baby without involving proper legal channels or even getting consent from all parties involved is frowned upon in corporate America. Who knew? I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Genuine, unbridled amusement. So she's in trouble at work? Not official trouble, but like uncomfortable trouble. The kind where everyone's talking about you and your boss has given you the talk about appropriate workplace relationships. I heard she left the office in tears around 9 this morning. Jesse's tone softened slightly. "I know it's your ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife, so maybe I shouldn't be enjoying this as much as I am." "No, enjoy away," I said. "She created this circus. She can deal with being the main attraction. Oh, and one more thing, Jesse added. Someone in her office apparently made a meme. It's a picture of the woman yelling at cat format, but they photoshopped it to say my wife offering her uterus to her coworker on the woman's side, and me trying to enjoy unlimited breadsticks on the cat's side. It's circulating on their internal Slack, and someone sent it to the building-wide channel by accident. Mason lost it. Actually lost it. Laughing so hard he had to put his coffee down before he spilled it. I was somewhere between horrified and amused, leaning heavily toward amused. I hate the internet, I said, but I was smiling. The internet hates boring stories, Jesse replied. And brother, your story is anything but boring. Anyway, I just thought you'd want to know that public opinion is shifting in your favor, at least in the court of Haley's office gossip. Ava says it might actually help with the divorce proceedings if we can establish that even Haley's coworkers think she acted inappropriately. After we hung up with Jesse, Mason pulled up his laptop and started typing furiously. I have to see this meme. Please don't tell me you're joining her company's Slack. I have a friend who works there in accounting. Give me 2 minutes. He typed, waited, then turned the laptop toward me. Found it. There it was, in all its low-resolution glory. The meme was even better than described. The angry woman was labeled, my wife volunteering to carry her co-worker's baby. The confused cat was labeled, me with my breadsticks. And someone had added a third panel at the bottom showing the cat walking away with the caption, me filing for divorce. I'm a meme, I said. I've achieved meme status. You're not just a meme, you're a relatable meme. That's like being internet famous, but without having to do anything embarrassing on TikTok. Mason screenshotted it and sent it to himself. I'm framing this. Please don't. Too late. This is going on my wall of reasons marriage is terrifying. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized, my friend Tyler from college, who I hadn't spoken to in probably a year. I answered warily. Hey, Tyler. Dude, is it true that Haley volunteered to be a surrogate without asking you? No preamble, no small talk, just straight to the point. That was Tyler, subtle as a brick through a window. How did you? Lindsay saw it on Facebook. Apparently one of Haley's friends posted a whole thing about how you're abandoning your wife in her time of need. And then like 50 people started commenting asking what was going on. And then someone else commented the actual story. And now it's this whole thing. I just wanted to call and make sure you weren't actually having a breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm having a divorce. Yeah, that tracks. Listen, man, if you did that to me, told me you were carrying a baby for some dude from your office without asking first, I'd lose my mind too. You're completely justified. I heard noise in the background. Lindsay wants to know if you need anything. Food, beer, a punching bag with Haley's face on it. Tell Lindsay I'm good, but I appreciate it. Will do. And hey, for what it's worth, half our friend group is on your side. The other half hasn't heard the full story yet, but they'll come around. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up, and I sat there processing the fact that my personal life had apparently become public entertainment. My divorce was on Facebook. People were making memes. There were Slack polls. This was not how I'd envisioned my Thursday morning. Mason was watching me with an expression that was part sympathy, part entertainment. You okay? I'm fine. It's just surreal. On Monday, I was a guy with a normal marriage going to Olive Garden for dinner. Now I'm an office legend and an internet meme. Fame is fleeting, brother. Enjoy it while it lasts. He stood up and refilled his coffee. On the bright side, you're winning the public opinion war. That's going to make Haley's life significantly more difficult, which means she'll be more likely to settle quickly rather than drag this out. Is it bad that I'm enjoying this a little bit? After what she put you through? No. Enjoy away. You've earned it. He raised his mug. To becoming a meme for all the right reasons. To becoming a meme, I echoed, clinking my mug against his. My phone buzzed. A text from Haley. Everyone at work is talking about us. This is humiliating. Are you happy now? I showed it to Mason. You know what to say, he prompted. I typed back. Please contact my attorney. Then I blocked her number, finished my eggs, and got back to work, feeling lighter than I had in days. Let them talk. Let them make memes. Let Haley deal with the consequences of making our private life public by calling everyone we knew looking for sympathy. I had a divorce to win. The courthouse smelled like old wood, stress, sweat, and the crushed dreams of people who thought they could represent themselves in legal proceedings. I sat on a wooden bench outside courtroom 3B that had probably witnessed 1,000 divorces before mine, wearing the one suit I owned that didn't make me look like I was attending a high school debate tournament. Ava sat next to me, reviewing notes on her tablet with the focused intensity of a surgeon prepping for a complex operation, occasionally making small sounds that could mean anything from "we've got this" to "your wife is about to pull something insane." "Stop bouncing your leg," she said without looking up. "You look nervous." "I am nervous. I've never been to court before. You're not on trial for murder. This is just a preliminary hearing for temporary orders. The judge is going to decide who stays in the house, how bills get paid during the divorce, basic logistics. It's boring." She looked at me over her glasses. "Well, usually it's boring. Your case has been anything but usual so far." Down the hall, I spotted Haley arriving with her attorney, a guy named Richard Pemberton who looked exactly like what you'd get if you ordered lawyer from a catalog. Mid-50s, gray hair, expensive suit, briefcase that probably cost more than my car payment, and the kind of confident stride that suggested he'd done this dance 1,000 times and expected to waltz through it again today. Haley looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. Her hair wasn't styled with its usual precision, her makeup was minimal, and she wore a conservative dress that was clearly chosen to make her look sympathetic and vulnerable. When she saw me, her face did something complicated, part anger, part sadness, part something I couldn't quite identify. Regret, maybe? Or just strategic emotion for the judge. "Don't make eye contact," Ava murmured. "Don't wave, don't smile, don't acknowledge her at all. You're Switzerland, remember?" I remember. Richard Pemberton approached us, Haley trailing behind him like a sad balloon losing helium. "Ava," he said with the kind of professional courtesy that barely masked mutual dislike. "Always a pleasure." "Richard." Ava stood, matching his energy perfectly. "I see you're representing Mrs. Walsh." "I am. I was hoping we could discuss a possible settlement before we go in front of Judge Morrison. Save everyone some time and money." He glanced at me, then back to Ava. "My client is willing to be reasonable if your client stops the financial harassment." "Financial harassment?" Ava's eyebrow arched so high it nearly achieved orbit. "You mean protecting marital assets during divorce proceedings? That's called standard legal practice, Richard. Maybe you've heard of it. Freezing accounts without warning, removing her from health insurance while she's preparing to undergo a medical procedure. A medical procedure she chose to undergo without consulting her husband," Ava interrupted smoothly. "A medical procedure that involves carrying another man's baby. Let's not pretend Mrs. Walsh is the victim of anything except her own poor decision-making." Richard's jaw tightened. "My client was trying to help friends who were struggling with infertility. It was an act of compassion. Your client volunteered her uterus to her male coworker without asking her husband's permission. That's not compassion, Richard. That's a unilateral decision that destroyed a marriage." Ava smiled, but it was the smile of a shark who'd just spotted lunch. "We're not settling. We're going in there, and we're letting Judge Morrison decide. I think she'll be very interested in the facts of this case." Richard looked like he wanted to argue, glanced at Haley who was staring at the floor, then shook his head. "Fine. See you in there." As they walked away, I leaned toward Ava. "You enjoy this, don't you?" "Immensely." Richard's an old-school guy who thinks women should be grateful for whatever scraps their husbands leave them in a divorce. He's going to hate arguing that your wife deserves anything after what she pulled. She checked her watch. "We're up in 5 minutes. Remember, answer questions directly. Don't volunteer extra information. And for God's sake, don't let Richard bait you into looking angry or bitter. You're the reasonable one here." "Reasonable. Got it." We filed into the courtroom, which looked exactly like every courtroom I'd seen on TV, except smaller and less dramatic. Judge Catherine Morrison sat at the bench reviewing paperwork, a black woman in her early 60s with gray hair, reading glasses perched on her nose, and an expression that suggested she'd seen every flavor of human nonsense and was thoroughly unimpressed by all of it. The bailiff called the case. Walsh versus Walsh, case number 2025, DR 4782. We stood. Ava gave her opening statement. Brief, professional, hitting all the key points about Haley's unilateral decision, the surrogacy arrangement, my reasonable response to protect assets. Richard countered with his version, painting Haley as a kind-hearted woman being punished for wanting to help others, suggesting I was controlling and vindictive. Judge Morrison listened without expression, making occasional notes. Then came the questions. Mrs. Walsh, Judge Morrison said, looking over her glasses at Haley. Did you discuss this surrogacy arrangement with your husband before offering to carry your co-worker's child? Haley stood, looking small and sad. No, Your Honor. But I thought he would understand. I thought. Yes or no answers, please. Did you discuss it with him? No, Your Honor. And when did you inform him of this decision? At dinner, Your Honor. At Olive Garden. Even from across the courtroom, I could see her hands shaking. At Olive Garden, Judge Morrison repeated, writing something down. And what was his reaction? He seemed supportive at first, but then, what was his immediate reaction at the restaurant? Haley hesitated. He said it was beautiful. And later he froze our bank accounts and filed for divorce. Her voice cracked. Without warning, Judge Morrison turned to me. Mr. Walsh, is that accurate? You told your wife her decision was beautiful and then immediately filed for divorce. I stood. Your Honor, I said it was beautiful because I was in shock and didn't know how else to respond. I processed my feelings later, consulted with family and legal counsel, and made the decision to file for divorce after careful consideration. How much later? About 18 hours, Your Honor. That's pretty fast. Respectfully, Your Honor, my wife volunteered to be pregnant with another man's baby for 9 months without asking me. That felt like the kind of decision that warranted a fast response. I caught the tiniest hint of a smile on Judge Morrison's face before it disappeared. Mr. Pemberton, do you have evidence that Mr. Walsh's actions were motivated by anything other than a reasonable response to his wife's unilateral decision? Richard stood. Your Honor, my client believes her husband is being vindictive and punitive. She can't access funds for basic necessities. Does your client have her own bank account with her own salary? Ava interjected. Counselor Morrison, you'll have your turn, Judge Morrison said, but she looked at Richard expectantly. She does, Your Honor, but... So she has access to money, just not the joint accounts. And does she have employment? Yes, Your Honor. Then she's not without resources. Judge Morrison looked at her notes again. Let me make sure I understand the situation. Mrs. Walsh, you work with a man named Brandon, correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you offered to carry a child for him and his wife? Yes, Your Honor. Did Brandon's wife know about this offer when you made it? Haley went very still. I'm not sure, Your Honor. You're not sure? Judge Morrison looked genuinely surprised. You offered to carry someone's baby, and you didn't confirm that both parents were aware of and agreed to this arrangement? I spoke with Brandon, and he said, Did you speak with Claire? Brandon's wife? No, Your Honor. Not directly. So you volunteered to undergo a 9-month medical procedure to carry a child for a couple without actually speaking to half of that couple. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. Mrs. Walsh, I'm trying very hard to understand your thought process here. Richard stood quickly. Your Honor, my client was acting out of compassion. Compassion usually involves consulting all parties involved, Counselor. This sounds less like compassion and more like... She paused, searching for words. An episode of a reality show I would never watch. Someone in the back of the courtroom, probably another lawyer waiting for their case, snorted with laughter. The bailiff shot them a look. Ava stood. Your Honor, if I may, we have a statement from Claire Thompson, Brandon's wife, confirming that she was never consulted about this arrangement and that she has no intention of accepting Mrs. Walsh as a surrogate. We also have evidence that this situation has created significant professional issues for Mrs. Walsh at her workplace. I'll review those documents. But based on what I'm hearing today, here's my temporary order. Judge Morrison put her glasses back on. Mr. Walsh will remain in the marital home. Mrs. Walsh will find alternative housing until the divorce is finalized. The frozen accounts will remain frozen, and both parties will maintain separate finances. Mrs. Walsh, you'll have supervised access to the home to collect your belongings. Any questions? Your Honor, Richard protested. My client has nowhere to go. Your client has a job, her own bank account, and apparently plenty of friends at work she's willing to carry babies for. I'm sure she can find accommodation. Judge Morrison's tone was final. Additionally, I'm ordering both parties to attend mediation in 30 days to discuss asset division. If you can reach an agreement, wonderful. If not, We'll reconvene for a full hearing. Anything else? No, Your Honor, Ava said, barely containing her satisfaction. No, Your Honor, Richard echoed, sounding like a man who'd just watched his case implode. Then we're adjourned. The gavel came down. I walked out of that courtroom with Ava beside me, Haley's muffled crying echoing behind us, feeling something I'd been chasing since that night at Olive Garden. Vindication. Well, Ava said as we reached the parking lot. That went better than expected. The judge smirked when I mentioned the breadsticks. Judge Morrison appreciates absurdity. She's seen everything. People fighting over lawn gnomes, arguing about who gets the frozen embryos, claiming their spouse stole their identity to buy a boat. Your case is weird, but it's the good kind of weird. The kind where one person is clearly unreasonable and the other is justifiably done with their nonsense. So what happens now? Now you move back into your house. Haley figures out her living situation, and we wait for mediation. My guess? She'll want to settle quickly once she realizes how bad this looks. Ava unlocked her car. Get some rest. Enjoy your victory. You earned it. I drove back to Mason's to pack up my stuff, texting him. I won. Judge basically called Haley's decisions insane. Moving back home. His response came immediately. Legend. Beer tonight to celebrate. Absolutely. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was going to survive this with my sanity and my bank account intact. The mediation session happened in a conference room that tried too hard to be calming. Beige walls, generic landscape paintings, a bowl of individually wrapped mints on the table that nobody was going to eat. The mediator, a woman named Patricia who had the patient energy of someone who'd refereed 1,000 couples throwing their marriages into a wood chipper, sat at the head of the table with her legal pad and her expression of professional neutrality. Haley sat on one side with Richard, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I sat across from her with Ava, who'd worn her power suit, the navy one that meant business. Patricia started with the standard speech about mediation being voluntary, confidential, focused on finding mutually agreeable solutions. Then she cut to the chase. Let's discuss asset division. I've reviewed both financial disclosures. The primary assets are the marital home, 2 vehicles, retirement accounts, and Mr. Walsh's inheritance of approximately $80,000. Mrs. Walsh, your counsel has indicated you're seeking 50% of all marital assets, including the inheritance. Is that correct? Yes, Haley said quietly. We were married 5 years. I deserve half. Ava didn't even wait for her turn. The inheritance is separate property, clearly documented, never commingled with marital funds. It's not on the table. It was received during the marriage. Richard started. Doesn't matter. State law is clear. Inherited assets maintained separately are not marital property. Ava slid documents across the table. Bank statements showing the inheritance remained in a separate account. Never touched, never mixed with joint funds. Your client has no legal claim to it. Patricia reviewed the documents, nodded. Ms. Morrison is correct. The inheritance is separate property. Mrs. Walsh, you're not entitled to those funds. Haley's face crumpled. That's not fair. I supported him. You supported him by volunteering to carry another man's baby? Ava's tone was sharp. Let's talk about what you did during this marriage that justifies taking half of anything. I was a good wife. You made a unilateral decision that ended the marriage. You treated your husband like a roommate whose opinion didn't matter. The judge already ruled in his favor on temporary orders. Do you really want to go to trial and have your surrogacy adventure become public record? The room went silent. Richard whispered something to Haley, who shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Patricia intervened. Let's take a break. 10 minutes. When we reconvened, Richard's position had shifted dramatically. My client will accept the following: $8,000 from the joint savings, her vehicle, and her personal retirement account. She waives any claim to the house, his retirement funds, and the inheritance. Ava looked at me. I nodded. It was more than fair. It was generous, considering. We accept, with one addition, Ava said. Mrs. Walsh signs a waiver stating she will not make any future claims against Mr. Walsh's assets, including the inheritance, and agrees to a no disparagement clause regarding social media and public statements about the divorce. Agreed, Richard said quickly, probably grateful to end this before it got worse. Papers were drawn up, signatures exchanged, and just like that, After 30 days of chaos, I was almost free. In the parking lot, Ava shook my hand. Congratulations. You handled this perfectly, stayed calm, protected yourself, didn't let emotion cloud your judgment. The final decree will be processed in about 6 weeks, and then you're officially single. Thanks for everything, Ava. You were worth every penny. She smiled. I know. Now go live your life, and maybe next time, marry someone who asks before volunteering their internal organs for community service. I laughed, got in my car, and drove home. My home, not our home, feeling lighter than I had in years. 3 weeks after the mediation, I was finally starting to feel normal again. The house was mine, the accounts were sorted, and I'd stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes expecting another crisis. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with a woman named Brooke I'd met through a friend, someone who thought the surrogacy story was absolutely insane in the best possible way. Then Claire called. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice tight with anger. Something I just found out about Haley and Brandon. I sat down. What is it? The surrogacy thing? It was bullshit. Complete bullshit. She laughed, but it sounded bitter. I've been going through Brandon's phone. I know. Invasion of privacy. But I had a feeling something was off. They've been having an affair. For months. The whole, let me carry your baby thing was just Haley's insane excuse to spend more time with him. The room tilted slightly. An affair. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts. Everything. The surrogacy was her cover story, some delusional plan where she'd get pregnant with their baby, and I'd somehow just accept it because it was framed as helping us. Claire's voice cracked. She wanted to have Brandon's baby and make it look like charity. I'm filing for divorce too, and I'm suing both of them for emotional distress. I sat there processing, then started laughing. Actually laughing, because what else could I do? My wife hadn't just volunteered to be a surrogate. She'd orchestrated an elaborate scheme to have an affair baby disguised as altruism. It was so absurd, so perfectly Haley, that I couldn't even be angry anymore. I'm sorry, Claire. That's completely insane. You're telling me. But here's the good news. I'm making sure everyone knows the truth. Her office, our friends, everyone who thought you were the bad guy for divorcing her. They're about to find out exactly what kind of person she is. After we hung up, I called Mason. You're not going to believe this. Try me. I told him everything. He was silent for a long moment. Then, so she was going to baby trap her affair partner by disguising it as surrogacy? That's either genius or completely psychotic. Why not both? Fair point. He paused. You dodged a nuke, man. Like, you didn't just dodge a bullet. You dodged a full thermonuclear warhead. I really did. The story spread through Haley's office faster than free donuts on a Monday morning. Within 48 hours, everyone knew. The memes evolved. Now I wasn't just breadstick guy. I was the guy who escaped the surrogate affair scheme. Someone made a true crime podcast joke about it. My inbox filled with messages from people I barely knew, all saying variations of, holy shit, you were right. Haley became a cautionary tale, a walking HR disaster, the answer to, what's the craziest thing someone at your office has ever done? And me? I moved on, lighter and wiser, grateful I'd trusted my instincts that night at Olive Garden. Sometimes the breadsticks really do save your life. A year later, I was standing in line at a Starbucks on a random Tuesday afternoon when I saw her. Haley, looking exhausted, holding a toddler on her hip, a little boy with Brandon's unmistakable features. She froze when she spotted me, her face cycling through panic, shame, and resignation. Hi, she said quietly. Hey. I grabbed my coffee from the barista. The kid was crying, squirming, making those sounds that only toddlers can make. Pure chaos condensed into 30 pounds of human. He's not, she started. I know. Don't worry. I'm not applying for stepdad. She almost smiled. Almost. I heard you're seeing someone. That veterinarian. Brooke. Yeah, she's great. Likes bad jokes, hates drama. I took a sip of my coffee. How's Brandon? We're not together anymore. Turns out affair babies don't actually fix relationships. She shifted the kid to her other hip. Claire took him for everything in the divorce. And my company asked me to resign after everything. That's rough. I made mistakes, she said. And for the first time since I'd known her, she sounded genuinely self-aware. A lot of mistakes. I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She wasn't the villain anymore, just a tired single mom who'd blown up her entire life, chasing some fantasy version of herself as everyone's hero. I forgive you, I said, and I meant it. Not for you, for me. Carrying anger around is exhausting. Thank you. Her voice cracked. I mean it. Thank you. The kid wailed louder. She sighed. I should go? He needs a nap. Or an exorcism. Hard to tell. Good luck, Haley. You too. I walked out into the afternoon rain, coffee in hand, feeling something shift. Closure, maybe. Or just the final page turning on a chapter I'd already moved past. That night, I met Brooke for dinner. A real restaurant, not Olive Garden, somewhere with cloth napkins and a wine list. She asked about my day, and I told her about running into Haley. How do you feel? She asked. Honestly, fine. Maybe even good. She apologized. I forgave her. We both moved on. Clean ending. Brooke raised her glass. To clean endings and better beginnings. To never volunteering other people's organs without permission, I countered. She laughed. That genuine, unguarded laugh that made me glad I'd swiped right 6 months ago. You're never letting that go, are you? Would you? Absolutely not. We clinked glasses, and I realized something important. Revenge is temporary, dramatic, and ultimately hollow. But peace of mind is permanent, priceless, and way cheaper than child support. I'd survived the breadstick bombshell, the office circus, the courtroom drama. And on the other side, I'd found something better than vindication. I'd found myself again. And this time, I was keeping better company.